Today we have the pleasure to talk to Hugo Steckelmacher. Hi, Hugo. How are you doing?
Hi, Alfonso. I'm doing good. Thanks. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I was worried about if I have, I'm sure I haven't, if I have pronounced your name and surname correctly. So how do you pronounce it?
So the way you said it is the way that I would normally say it.
Okay.
It depends. Now I'm living in a German-speaking country, so people normally get my surname right. They say Steckelmacher, but in England, when I was growing up, it was always Steckelmacher. And
Oh.
actually, you did a good job because what would normally happen when I was a kid is people would just look at the surname, get intimidated, and just say Hugo. So.
And what about Spain? Because you have lived in Spain. How did people pronounce it there?
Oh, you don't want to know. I think one of the worst experiences in my life was whenever I had to call up Telefonica or one of these companies and I had to give them my surname. And I think that was normally the longest part of the conversation, trying to explain it.
Yeah, I have had that similar experience because my second surname is quite complicated. And yes, and then when you have to spell it, people then, well, when you receive an email, you see that you haven't been able to spell it properly or they didn't get it. So yeah, that's a problem. Well, apart from the name and surname, for those of you who dare not knowing you yet, we will say that you have been in the translation scene or industry for more than 10 years now. So it's alive. You are a translator, you're a proofreader, an editor, and as a translator, you specialize in sports, tourism, medical translation, and you currently work for FIFA, the International Football Association, as a translator and proofreader.
That's right.
And I forgot you speak Spanish, of course, English, Catalan. Am I missing something? I don't know if you speak more languages.
Well, so those are my main languages along with French. My spoken French is not quite at the same level as Catalan and Spanish because I've never lived in France, never spent more than a couple of weeks there actually at any one time. But I do translate from French. And then, well, I also dabble in some other languages, a bit of Dutch, a bit of German. I'm learning Arabic at the moment, but I'm nowhere near there yet. I'm a long way away.
So the United Nations is you, actually. you have languages in one person. We were talking, well, we were introducing you professionally, but how would you introduce yourself? I mean, if someone asks you who is Hugo Steckelmacher, what would you say?
So I don't know. I'd be tempted to say that I'm a wordsmith, but I'd probably follow that up by something really inarticulate, and then I just disprove myself. So I just say I'm somebody who loves words and languages. There's a good word in Spanish, you know, letra herido, or lletra ferit in Catalan, which I would say sums me up, a lover of language and literature, and that also feeds into a lot of what I do outside my work, because every morning I'll get up and I'll do a crossword. That will be my first challenge of the morning to exercise my brain. And also the type of music I listen to, which is lyrical hip hop, where wordplay and intricate use of language is what it's all about. So I would say that would be the best definition. I have other hobbies and interests, but most of them center on language.
Yeah, so you are a true language lover. In your presentation, we have said that you become that you work for FIFA. But how does one become a translator for FIFA? And do you need to like football to work for FIFA? Like football, actually.
So I do like football, as it happens, but I would say that it's by no means a necessity, because the vast majority of the work that we do at FIFA is not actually about the action on the pitch. It centers really on everything that surrounds the game from a governance point of view. So that can be regulations, disciplinary decisions when somebody infringes the regulations, or the logistical side of organizing tournaments and matches. So really, we do some heavily footballing content, but it's very much in the minority.
Mm-hmm.
As for how I got to FIFA, I'd say that it's a combination of serendipity, because a couple of friends and colleagues of mine, Joshua and Mimi, they were the ones who pointed me in the right direction and made me aware of an opportunity that never probably would have come my way otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But my career up to that point had put me on the right track, because I had spent many years working for the Spanish Football League, La Liga, and the sports newspaper Marca.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, I'd worked for FIFA and UEFA through various agencies. So I knew the score, let's say.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, you have an amazing career. So I mean, when people see the interview, they can see also your LinkedIn profile, and yeah, they'll be amazed by the amount of things you have done and how much you have specialized in sports. It's amazing.
That's very kind.
It's true. We are talking about FIFA. What is and you have mentioned some things. What is a normal day as a translator for FIFA? I mean, what type of content do you have to work with? And I was also interested. Do you have to do some interpreting projects or services? Or
I'd say there's no such thing as a normal day at FIFA. It's a cliche answer, but things vary so much. It's a really fast-moving and dynamic organization. And just to give you a few examples, we can work on everything from regulations to disciplinary decisions, technical reports about tournaments, press releases, subtitles of interviews with players, even content for the FIFA museum. So, you know, every morning you get there, and also because there are so many people at FIFA and so many things going on, suddenly something arrives at 9 o'clock and your whole day is out of the window.
oh, that's super interesting. One I would not have imagined that working for such a big organization, you will do so many different kinds, or you will need to deal with so many different types of assets. I mean, even subtitles or things like that. I guess
it's incredibly varied.
It makes it complicated a little bit. Let's move a little bit away from FIFA, which is a fascinating organization, but let's focus on your career as a translator related to sports. What are the main difficulties that you have to face as a translator who works in sports, and how or which resources do you use to solve those difficulties, those issues, those problems?
So I'd say that sport is not really that different from any other field. Maybe the biggest difference is the fact that the sporting industry is always on. There's always something happening, and that's especially the case in these days compared to, say, 20 years ago. It used to be that there were 10 matches every weekend in the Premier League on Saturday at 3 o'clock, and that was it. And now there's a match on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So there's always something happening, and you've got to keep abreast of that. But that's not really something that you can, other than following the game, there aren't really good resources that you can use to tackle that issue. I'd say that from a purely translation point of view, there are quite large differences between different countries in the way that they cover sports, the register of their sports journalism, and conventions that are used. So one of the tactics I would employ to try to stay on top of that is just reading the sports papers in different languages, watching matches in different languages, getting a feel for how the games are presented in different countries and cultures, even within the same language. In Spain, it's quite different compared to Argentina. It's another country that I happen to know quite a lot about. And so, yeah, you just have to, like any other job, any other translation job, it's about research. It so happens that in football, that can mean watching matches, which isn't a bad way to do research.
Yeah, yeah, no, indeed. If you like football, then you are enjoying your. I mean, if you like football, you love languages, then it's the perfect job. Um, as you we mentioned that you have worked in many different fields of specialty in the translation industry, not only sports. But which one do you consider the most rewarding one in terms of personal satisfaction or financially? The most challenging one, which will be the one?
That's a tough question. So there might be the assumption if you looked at my CV that what I find most rewarding is working in sports translation, for example. And there are definitely specific projects I've worked on that really, I don't know, I relished for personal reasons, such as I was lucky enough to work on the sports journalist Guillem Balaguer's books about Cristiano Ronaldo and Mauricio Pochettino. I'm actually a Tottenham fan, so to work on a book about Pochettino and get to meet him at the book launch, which all came about thanks to another friend, in fact, Mark Joss, who's another football translator and interpreter. That was an amazing experience, and Guillem has a really interesting way of writing and getting into the spirit of his characters in the end. So I would say those were among the highlights. But having said that, football isn't what defines me, or sport isn't what defines me. And I would say that my most rewarding projects have been mostly books, literary texts. I was privileged to work a couple of years ago on Aurea Dicta, which is a compilation of classical aphorisms that was, it presents the original text in Latin alongside the translation into Spanish, Catalan, and English. I was involved in checking the English translations, which were done by a quite eminent translator. And it's essentially a collector's item with illustrations by Miquel Barceló. I love art, so that really brought all the strands together.
Yeah.
That was
I would say you
an
have been very lucky in your life, in your translation career, because I mean, what you are telling me, it's like, wow, that's fascinating. So,
yeah, it's a great excuse to look back on the highlights. And sometimes when you're in the grind of the day to day and you're thinking, oh, you know, this job is a bit dull, or oh, another 1,000 words here, and you don't stop to appreciate the great things that you've had the chance to work on. There are many more I could name, but I won't bore you with all of them.
And we have time, so if you want to. Okay. We have mentioned that you have lived in Spain. Actually, you have lived in Barcelona for more than 10 years, if I'm not wrong. And you are even a member of the Catalan Association of Translators. That's great. How has that experience helped you in your professional career? Has it been a life changer? Would you recommend a similar experience to those studying translation and modern and foreign languages?
It definitely was a life changer for me. My Spanish improved, but my Spanish and my Catalan improved immeasurably when I moved to Spain. I think you probably know that in the UK, languages are studied in a 4-year degree, and the 3rd year is spent abroad. So I spent my 3rd year abroad. I went back, finished my degree, and then I actually headed straight back to Barcelona in my case. But even in that 1 year, the amount of progress that I made in terms of fluency, familiarity was quite, it's something it's hard to put into words, really. Something shifts in your brain. I don't know, what's your experience been?
Yeah, no, it's very similar indeed. I mean, yeah, I'm living in Berlin, in Germany, and yeah, it's getting used to everything. It's what you say suddenly, even if I'm not, I mean, formally studying German, but yeah, everything comes to your brain. You start, I mean, it's the natural way of learning a language. But yeah, things start coming to your brain and clear. Then you can produce, and also you can start talking. And when yesterday you were not able even to pronounce a word. yeah, I mean, it's of course it's a life-changing experience, and also studied in England, and yeah, of course, I agree with you. That's something I will recommend everybody to do, and even more if you're studying languages or translation. I think that's basic. I mean, if you want to work in this industry.
Having said that, there's a metaphor that really stuck in my mind, actually, not about languages, it's about football, funnily enough, which is, it was a journalist that I heard talking about when you're trying to set up your team as a coach, you can, if you imagine that you have a blanket and you want to put it over your players, but it's just too short to cover all of them. So you can cover either the defense and the midfield, but then maybe your attack won't be perfect. Or you can move it up and you cover your midfield and your attack. So you play in a more attacking way and you leave your defense exposed. So for me, if you change the defense and the attack for your native tongue and the languages that you're studying, it's a bit like that. You live abroad and obviously you develop the languages you're learning a huge amount, but then you can start to lose your native tongue a bit. And you have to make a real effort to keep up to date with the latest trends and, I don't know, watch TV, listen to the radio. Obviously, these are things that will generally come naturally to a native speaker, but I always remember a few years ago, the first time I heard the expression Netflix and chill. Do you know this expression?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd never heard it. It was completely new for me. And there were lots of memes going around and I just thought, I don't understand what's so funny. And that really drove home how important it is to continually study your own language and the way it's evolving.
Absolutely agree. Actually, I remember that when I was studying in England, when I went back to Spain, I'm talking about many years ago. I don't know what was trendy at that time on TV, but everybody was using, like these words from this TV, the famous TV show that at that moment, and I didn't know what they were talking about. Of course, I was talking when there was almost no internet. So yeah, I mean, it was catch up with people. Well, why are they repeating all the time the same thing? Then okay, there is a TV show where they say it. There's a famous character. So yeah, indeed, you need to be to be aware of what's going on. Otherwise, you are going to miss a lot of a lot of things that are between lines, and yeah, you are not getting half the information. So yeah, indeed.
And the internet is a gift and a curse, no? Because on the one hand, it's easier than ever to gain access to stuff, but the amount of content is just staggering. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, basically.
Yeah, you're completely right. Last two questions. That there is a topic that I like, which is machine translation, or these advances in our industry. How are those advances in machine translation or machine copywriting that it's also happening impacting your work? Do you see it as something positive or negative?
The first thing I'd say is I've actually worked with machine translation for many years. Well, I did, at least. I'm not doing it at the moment, but I used to work for a company that specialized in machine translation, and the technology has come on a lot since then. But even then, you could see the potential. The amount of post editing at that point was massive, but it was certainly effective in bringing efficiencies in some senses, and it allowed companies to pitch their services, allowed this company to pitch its services at lower rates. So in a sense, I think one of the positive things about machine translation is it makes translation accessible to people and institutions that might otherwise not have the opportunity to get their products or services in other languages. I think we all know about the dangers of machine translation, that the quality can be patchy. As we've already said, language is constantly evolving, and the machines will always be trying to catch up. And in any case, there's always going to be somebody programming the machines. But I don't know, I think that it's a positive in terms of access. And then there's one other area in which I think it can be great, in that if you have a machine a good, it can be proprietary or public depending on the needs, a good machine translation supplier that can be used for internal translations. For example, I don't know, imagine at your company, the CEO needs to know what the meaning of an email written to him in Hungarian is. He doesn't need to publish it. He just needs to know more or less. So he might send that to you and you send it to I don't know, you outsource it, or if it's a language you know, then you produce the translation. But there's a lot of time and energy invested in things that for which a top quality publishable translation is not required. So I think that if you're able to get the setup right and educate people about the uses of machine translation, you can actually then bring out the professionals for the areas in which they can add the most value. And, you know, they're not wasting time translating things so that some person can understand it and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually, I always use an example that it's like in these booking platforms where, like Booking, for example, and where, for example, the comments that other users make are usually machine translated. And it's okay because, I mean, you just want to know, okay, I'm going to that hotel. Is it a good one? Let's see what this Russian guy, that German woman said. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a gauge. At least you get to understand the general sense of what they wrote. So I think it's also what you were saying. It's educating us, and to what extent we want to accept machine translated content. In those cases, we are okay, and we say that that's okay. Otherwise, I will be missing maybe some information. In some other cases, we will consider it unacceptable. No, I cannot imagine like a big company having like their web content machine translated, not post-edited or nothing like that. So that will be crazy nowadays. Yeah, as you were saying, let's see where the future takes us.
I'm sure that every day there are new examples of websites that have been machine translated and that have been epic fails. And actually those are good for us as translators because they're the best advert for our services. You know, I think we have to not be blind about it. Machine translation isn't going away, and we have to think about the best strategies to use it for our own benefit, to educate clients. But, you know, when they see, I saw an example the other day on LinkedIn. I don't know if it was part of some sophisticated marketing campaign to generate attention, but it was, I think it was the Provincia de Córdoba in Argentina or something like that. They had machine translated a campaign and it said Sierras Chicas, which is the name of these mountains, and it said Girl Mountains or something like that. And, you know, if it was not deliberate, because it might have been, you know, what more do you want? You see that and you think, come on. And that's not a difficult translation. It wouldn't necessarily have cost them a lot of money to get it either post-edited or just get the translation done properly. So, you know, I think there's going to be work for some time to come.
Yeah, we don't have to panic yet.
Not yet, not yet.
The last question, I promise. Which are the tools, apps, or websites you consider vital to do your job or that you use every day?
The first one I'd mentioned, it's not a specific tool or website, but it's a function or feature. It's text-to-speech tools, TTS. So that can be within Microsoft Word, there's the speak button, or there are also dedicated websites, or even on Mac, you can just do it with a shortcut combination, a key combination, so that you can have your text read back to you. I used to be, when I was proofreading or translating, sitting or standing here like a madman, reading things out loud and bothering the people around me. And now I'm using this so that before I deliver a translation or a proofread document, I will always listen to it so that I can, firstly, it helps to identify typos, especially missing words that a spell check won't pick up and that your eyes will often gloss over. When you hear them, you suddenly say, oh, there's something missing. And secondly, if, like me, I don't know, you have that love of well-crafted language that sells, or that draws you in. Listening to it gives you a good flow for a good feel for the flow, for the rhythm, and you don't get that from just reading it on the page. So that's my number one. My number two, I would say using corpora, things like the British National Corpus, because as I said, I've lived outside England for almost 15 years now. And there are things that I instinctively would write in one way or another, but it's good to get a sense check. And a Google search is obviously something that we all do, but searching a corpus is a step up from that. You're getting filtered results from specific outlets or media. So that would be another one. And lastly, well, every translator's best friend is a good dictionary. So in my case, I use Oxford Premium, which also comes with lots of add-ons like Hearts, Ghana for legal usage. So that's a must. It's something I use 50 times a day, maybe.
Wow, wow, that's great. I like that you have mentioned some functionalities or uses that when we usually I usually make this question and people usually mention like tools like Google Drive or this or that tool, but I found it very interesting, and actually it's the first time I have heard someone saying, okay, I prefer to the machine to read it to me, and then I get the sense, and I found it very interesting and very logical what you have said. Yeah, because missing words, for example, that's difficult to spot for anyone. Yeah, it's super interesting. We are going to stop here. I'm honored by having you, so thank you very much. I have learned a lot from you, so that's something that I really appreciate. And it has been really interesting talking to you. So I just want to wish you the best to continue growing in the translation industry, to continue doing a great job for FIFA. I'm sure they must be super happy with you. And yeah, I'm wishing you the best.
I can't comment on whether they're happy with me, but yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, for reaching out. And also I wish you the best with TranslaStars, which I think is a really exciting initiative. So good luck with everything.
Thank you. Same to you. Have a great day. Ciao.
You too. Take care.